Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Here, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for opening remarks by Vice President Vinnie Palermo, District 4.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone. We still have one more meeting, so I won't take all of Councilmember Paul's flair next week being the last meeting, but it is the season. If you haven't been outside and enjoyed the Arctic air or the snow we had this past Saturday, you know it's here. And it also draws the end of 2020, which has been a reward for some, but a challenge for many, and a challenge for, you know, the health care heroes, the teachers, the small business owners. But there is hope because there's a vaccine. So there is that light at the tunnel that we'll soon be, and we know by next year we'll get out of this and be back to where we need to be as a city and a state and a country. But what I want to leave you with is a challenge, because it is the end of the year, and it's a challenge to go out and do something for somebody. But here's the part of the challenge. You can't go live, you can't post it, and you can't bring people with you. You have to do it on your own for somebody, because that's really what people need here at the end of 2020. So I challenge you, do something for somebody that you wouldn't do otherwise. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this meeting of the Omaha City Council. As a courtesy to those in attendance and to facilitate the conduct of our business, we ask that you turn off or silence all electronic devices. We've had a request to move an agenda item up to the beginning, and that is number 66. So without objections, so ordered.
Item 66, a resolution that the Omaha City Council supports making Offutt Air Force Base the permanent location of the U.S. Space Command headquarters.
The public hearing on item 66 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Jennifer Krieger, Greater Omaha Chamber, 808 Conagra Drive, Suite 400. Just a couple of statements. We feel obviously that we're a very strong contender for this opportunity. The synergy with Stratcom is a great asset for us. We know the city and region has always shown strong support for the base and all of our service members. Public support is very helpful at this point in the selection process. We're gratified that we've had so many elected officials support this effort. So today we're asking for your unified support on the resolution, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on 66?
My name is Marty Bielek with the Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street. I'd like to read a letter from the Mayor to Honorable Barbara Barrett, Secretary of the Air Force, on this issue. As the Mayor of Nebraska's largest city, I was excited to hear that the U.S. Space Command headquarters may come to Offutt Air Force Base just south of Omaha. This expansion will bring high-tech jobs and careers to the greater Omaha area, where an abundance of talent already exists in the fields of science and technology. The Omaha area is home to 4 large universities and colleges with programs and degree paths that produce talented individuals in the fields of math, physics, and computer science. This homegrown talent is a perfect fit for the science and technical expertise that Space Command workforce requires. The institutions stand ready, as in the past, to assist the command in fulfilling its mission. During my 8 years as mayor, the Omaha area has seen historic economic development and growth. Modern public transportation has come to the region. Our city is racially and ethnically diverse and enjoys an impressively low crime rate. Multi-million-dollar development spans all sectors of our city. The Omaha Bellevue area appreciates the military families that have been here since Offutt was originally built during World War I. Military families value high-achieving school districts, minor league sports championships, world-class zoos, museums, and art galleries. Career opportunities exist for military family members in our community. Military-friendly professional licensing and certification regulations exist, recognizing the unique challenges created by demands of military life are in place and enable family members to easily move into the Omaha-Bellevue, Nebraska workforce. The 1941 expansion of Offutt Air Force Base to include the Martin Bomber Plant became a welcome addition to the Omaha area. Soon thereafter, Offutt gained international prominence when it became host to the headquarters for the Strategic Air Command. We have taken great pride in hosting thousands who have been assigned here and the many who have chosen to remain here after their service ended. Clearly, placing the U.S. Command Headquarters at Offutt Air Force Base will be a great assignment for military personnel and will be a cherished asset in our community. We appreciate your consideration and we'll be pleased to address any questions that you might have on this issue.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on item 66? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Oh,
Durham. Luis Jimenez, 3306 Birch Street. I'm neutral, if that's allowed. I watch Star Trek, and it's science fiction. The message is that humanity needs to grow past its conflicts in order to be integrated into the galactic family. Currently, the world is facing a lot of troubles, and when I first heard about the Space Force idea from President Trump, I was concerned because of the military component. But my neutrality comes from the boundaries that have not been set for the Space Command. If the Space Command's boundary is on this side of the moon or this far side of the moon, I'd be interested to know what the military thinks about it, because we really don't want to militarize space that we can't constantly guard. Thank you.
are there any other opponents? The public hearing is closed. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
I thought it was important to request this item.
You should be.
There we go. Thanks, Mr. President. I thought it was important to request this item on supplemental agenda. I know which is a bit unusual for us, only because I know time is of the essence in this discussion, and I think there are site visits happening as we speak, as the federal government decides where to place this joint command. And I think it's important for us to be on the record in unanimous support of this today, as the city of Omaha, much as other cities in our state and our federal delegation have done, to show that we are in support of our military and are in support of our veterans. And I think Omaha has a lot to offer in that respect, not only because of past partnerships with the Veterans Administration, for example, but our past history, the long history of successful involvement at Offutt Air Force Base and STRATCOM itself. It benefits not only Omaha and Bellevue, but Iowa too, and the whole state of Nebraska to have such a large economic engine and workforce in our community. It's a huge investment, a huge job creator, and supports our country and the freedom we all enjoy. So I hope my council members join me in supporting this today, and we wish our delegation well, led by the Chamber of Commerce and the governor and our federal representatives, to try and get this accomplished for our city. You can't really be outside of city government or in business and not encounter many retired military and veterans in our community that have decided to stay in Omaha and have made it their home for their families and for their careers, and that benefits all of us as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and move approval.
Thank you, Councilmember Festerson. Councilmember Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I too echo the importance of
of us taking this resolution up, and appreciate Council Member Festerson for bringing it forward. For it does mean over 1,400 employee positions between private and public sectors, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars of investment in the community. And in a conversation with the congressional office, Congressman Bacon sent a letter to be read into the record, which I will do at this point. It says, Dear Council members, I offer my strongest endorsement for the Council's recent resolution affirming Offutt Air Force Base in the greater Omaha region as the best possible choice for the permanent headquarters of the U.S. Space Command. This important resolution accurately identifies the many attributes which make Omaha and the state of Nebraska the ideal location to host this important national defense mission. I ask that the record show that I associate myself with the language, spirit, and intent of this resolution. In recent correspondence to the Secretary of the Air Force, the Nebraska congressional delegation observed that the Offutt Air Force Base served as the command headquarters for U.S. Joint Space Operations from 2002 to 2019. This fact clearly illustrates that Offutt possesses the infrastructure necessary to support U.S. Spacecom's mission and offers many critical operational synergies with U.S. Strategic Command. Given the region's long experience hosting U.S. STRATCOM and U.S. Spacecom missions over several decades, the surrounding community has a strong workforce with Joint Combat Command experience in joint space operations, intelligence, planning, exercising, and analysis. I also know from firsthand experience as the previous installation commander at Offutt that the greater Omaha area and the state of Nebraska offer an unmatched level of community support to military families and veterans. Governor Peter Ricketts recently validated this by communicating to the Secretary of the Air Force the generous financial investment the state of Nebraska and local business leaders are prepared to make to support the development of U.S. Spacecom infrastructure and facilities. Furthermore, I believe these important factors are bolstered by the superior quality of life we enjoy in Nebraska. The resolution accurately observes the AARP's livability index places the greater Omaha area above the other 5 locations under consideration. From high quality public schools to a thriving local economy with one of the lowest costs of living in the nation, the greater Omaha region offers everything needed to make an assignment to headquarters U.S. Spacecom one of the best assignments in the Department of Defense. I wish to commend the City Council for its unwavering support to the U.S. Spacecom strategic basing process and urge adoption of the resolution. Sincerely, Don Bacon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harding. Councilmember Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, and I too support this resolution. I've been very excited about the potential for this opportunity for the city of Omaha for some time, and not just the city of Omaha, but the greater Omaha area as we continue to work with Sarpy County, Bellevue, La Vista, Papillion, as we kind of are growing together and as one community. I think it'd be important for all of us, and I see another member of a city council over in Sarpy County sitting up there, that this would be important for not just Omaha, but for the communities that surround us. And with that, I have a statement that I would like to read from Congressman Fortenberry. Congressman Fortenberry states, Offutt Air Force Base is a critical piece of America's national security infrastructure and hosts to U.S. Strategic Command, the 55th Wing, and the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. Space Command would be a natural complement to Offutt's existing mission to protect U.S. military assets, dominate the battle space, and support our heroic warfighters. It is premature to know if Offutt will be ultimately chosen, but the consideration alone shows how important Offutt now is to our nation and the world. So that's Congressman Jeff Fortenberry. So I do hope and I do think Omaha and Offutt would be an ideal place for the U.S. Space Command. And whether you support the Space Command or not, it's getting built somewhere. So I do hope that it's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Melton. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 66 is approved, 7-0. Items 6 through 9 can be considered together for 168 Snowden Commons, located northwest of 168th Street and Rachel Snowden Parkway. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 6 and 7 are ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District and R4 District. Item 8, a resolution to approve the final plat for 168 Snowden Commons. Item 9, a resolution to approve the 168 Snowden Commons subdivision agreement.
The public hearing on items 6 through 9 begin at this time. Are there any proponents?
Good afternoon, Lana Bayless with DLR Group, 6457 Francis Street, Suite 200, here representing Bennington Public Schools. This is a plat to serve the growing needs for this school district. It will consist of, it's a 73-acre site, consists of 2 lots, one that will serve to house their 5th elementary school. The second lot will serve to house their 2nd middle school. And then we've dedicated right-of-way, worked diligently with Public Works and Planning to get this, get it all finalized, and we're just here to answer any questions if any pop up.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 7-0. Item 10, an ordinance to rezone property located at 1219 South 6th Street from GI District to R7 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 10 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 10 is approved, 7-0. Item 11, an ordinance to rezone the property located at 3922 Harney Street from GC District to NBD District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 11 begins at this time. We have 2 people registered associated with the project to participate by Zoom, Mr. Sands and Mr. Miller. They'll unmute you in just a second.
Hi, my name is Ryan Miller, 3924 Harney Street. This is to rezone this parcel of land so we have the same zoning as the 2 lots next to it, and we could build a restaurant structure on the space.
And your address is 3924 Harney Street?
For this, I mean.
Yes. You're registered to speak at that address, right?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sands?
Yep, Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street, on behalf of the applicant, Ryan Miller. Just happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on item 11? Any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 11 is approved, 7-0. Item 12, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC district to incorporate into that district the property located at 10344 Fort Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 12 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved, 7-0. Items 13 and 14 can be considered together for property located at 2102 North 24th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 13, an ordinance to rezone this property from GC District and GI District to NBD District. Item 14, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the ACI 1 Overlay District to incorporate this property into that district.
The Public hearing on items 13 and 14 begin at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 15, an application to consider a Class I liquor license for 3 Happiness Express located at 5107 Leavenworth Street, A's Communication and Support.
The public hearing on item 15 begins at this time, and we have David Kukul with the applicants registered to participate by Zoom. Mr. Kukul, you're recognized.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President. Dave Kokol, K-O-U-K-O-L, 12020 Shamrock Plaza, Suite 333, Omaha, Nebraska, 68154. And I am appearing with the 2 owners of 3 Happiness, Dao Sayavong and Lock Gwyn. They are present, should be in the Zoom. This is their first time using Zoom, and I'm an old guy with a newer computer, so I think we're here. Dao and Lock, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So, City Council members, this is an application for the liquor license as described. I am prepared to answer any questions, but the gist of it is that this has been a restaurant based upon the statement that was submitted with the application. It's a restaurant that's been at this location on 51st and Leavenworth for at least 12 years. And they had, unfortunately, a fire in January of 2020. And luckily, no one was hurt, although Locke had to run out in the snow with bare feet because it expanded so quickly. But they have undertaken a great deal of effort to rebuild, and they intend to reopen as soon as possible. If not, I don't know if they've already started, but they would like a liquor license. They did not have one before. And I believe that there has been at least one proponent that I saw through the City Council website that spoke in favor of this. I'm not aware of any opponents. And as far as the application stands at the state level through the Liquor Control Commission, I've been dealing with one of the contacts there, Tracy Burmeister, and I think I'm able to inform the council that I spoke to her yesterday. She indicated that the investigation, the officer doing the investigation had submitted a report. The report said that they met all the requirements and there was no problem with the application in that regard.
Thank you.
So,
and you're happy to answer any other questions, correct?
I stand here ready to answer along with Locke and Dow.
And the record reflect the letter and support came from the Exarban Elmwood Park Neighborhood Association. So that's what you were referencing.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, I'd let your clients know that the neighborhood is very excited to have the restaurant open back up. It was a very popular place for people who live in Midtown, and we wish you luck as you reopen. And I would note it's a Class I license app that I support. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 15 is approved, 7-0.
Good luck.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearing on agenda items 16 through 24 were held on December 8, 2020. Councilmember Palermo, Vice President, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I didn't need to take anything off the agenda, but I did want to discuss item 22. We talked about it last week. It's for creating a position for a land surveyor within Public Works. I asked last week how many employees we were short in Public Works and street maintenance, because obviously this land surveyor, if there was snow, they would need somebody to plow to get them there. And hopefully, whether there's potholes or other needed replacements along the streets, these are the employees that would do that as well. I asked last week how many people we were short. I wasn't given an answer. I'm sure it changes quite frequently. And I asked again today, and nobody knew either. So I just want to say, as we continue to add classifications of different jobs, we are still short in Local 251, which is that basic, entry level, the jobs that are necessary for the city of Omaha. So as you'll see next week on public hearing, there will be a street maintenance manager in front of you who is actually the boss of the employees that we don't have. So I'll keep bringing it up until we get serious, because I know we have some dedicated, hardworking employees here that could do better than what we're doing. I just looked on the HR site. There's no opening for AO1. 20-some people short. But we have in front of us this job we're going to create. And you're going to have public hearing tomorrow or next week on a job that would be this person's manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Festerson.
Yep.
Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 25 through 43 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or opponent. And before we get to the people speaking in the room, we have a few people registered to speak via Zoom. Big Red Keno Melody, which is registered. We'll have your full name and address on items 27 through 33. Go ahead, Melody.
Mr. President, thank you. Melody Simzak with Big Red Keno at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the items for Big Red Keno.
Thank you. We have on item 37, Mike Gawley from Holy Name Housing Corporation. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Mike Gawley, Executive Director of Holy Name Housing, 4324 Fort Street. Certainly willing to answer any questions you or the council has concerning these properties that we're acquiring from the city.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chamber wishing to speak on the consent agenda resolution, items 25 to 43? If so, please come up, tell us your name, address, the item number you wish to speak on, and your testimony.
I'm Kylie LaCour. My address is 11911 Gow Lane, Bellevue, Nebraska, 68123. I'm here to speak on behalf of 25. I represent Omaha Design Center, LLC. I'm standing in for Brooke A. Hudson, proponent for license management change.
Thank you. Any other speakers for the consent agenda resolutions? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Yes. Gray. Yes. Harding.
Yes.
Melton. Yes. Pauls. Palermo. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 44, an ordinance approving an agreement with Heartland B-Cycle, A's amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
Public hearing on item 44 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
We already had the public hearing last week.
What's the pleasure of the council on item 44? Roll call.
Festerson. Yes. Gray. Yes. Harding.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 45, a resolution to approve an amendment to the agreement with FCC as an interim agent for processing services of recyclable materials collected from City of Omaha residents for a term not to extend past December 31, 2021.
The public hearing on item 45 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Jim Tyler, City of Omaha Public Works, 1819 Farnham Street. Here on behalf of the city to answer any questions that you may have. Dan Brazel is here from FCC to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents?
Hi, Jim Thompson, 1001 South 35th Avenue. I'm here on behalf of myself, interested citizen in the recycling. As I've been with you before, I wish we had a processing contract, but that's to come. I think Rick Harding brought this up about a month ago about why do we, city, are in the business of processing the recycling and the 60% and all that. I think this is a great move. I think this will give the city a chance to kind of let the market bear what it does bear, however it bears. I don't know the details of the contract other than perhaps a lot of it will go to the best source in Omaha, that is First Star Recycling. I don't know the contractual arrangements, but I think it's a great move to kind of let the market just continue to take care of our recyclables. One other note with FCC, when Waste Management had the contract, they would go down the street twice, because in my neighborhood, you only have to go down once. I think they did it as a cautionary safety measure for corporate policy. If there's possibility, I know it's not part of this particular contract or this particular agenda item, but as far as speeding up the processing of recyclables or whatever, especially with the rear loading trucks, there only needs one pass down our streets. For example, 35th Avenue, you can't get a car past the truck loading. So it's not really a safety issue as it would be in Western Omaha. Just a sidebar for that. But anyways, this should allow, and then we'll talk about the next phase in a year from now or within a year. So I think this is a good move. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on item 45?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm in favor of it because I think the current yard waste and waste recycling company needs help. I live in the older area of Dundee, east of 72nd Street. And it's kind of fun watching one truck come down the street with one person, has to get down off the truck, put the cart on a little thing, and then the cart goes up in the back. Takes a lot longer than the old contract. There were like two guys physically throwing the yard waste or the waste into the truck. Seemed to go a lot faster. And we've been missed 2 weeks in a row. Can't get into the open line till after 7 o'clock, and then you can't get in because there's too many people calling. And to top it all off, the wheels fall off the new carts. I watched that happen. I don't know whether the neighbors who lost the wheels got new carts yet or not, but I doubt it, because they haven't picked up mine yet from last week. And they missed some of the recyclables the week before. And the magazine that's put out with the new carts is very confusing. You would think that the green line means that's your week to recycle. Well, it doesn't. If you call in, they'll say, oh no, you're not in B, you're in A. Excuse me, A is white, B is green, and B is every other week, right? Green is every other week, right? Well, no, you're in A for both. So we need that extra help. Obviously, a lot of stuff hasn't been picked up yet, so the FCC needs to pitch in and help. You need to pay the money. Thank you.
Are there any other proponents on item 45? Are there any opponents on item 45? The public hearing is closed. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
Mr. President, so the reason we have this agenda item on the agenda is because we did not come to an agreement on a longer-term contract, and I continue to believe we do need a longer-term contract to display our commitment to recycling and to have it harmonized with our waste hauling contract itself. But I am supportive of this interim measure here today because it does get it handled in the short term, up to a year. And Mr. Tyler, if you'd come to the podium just to confirm a few things for me. Go ahead and identify yourself.
Jim Tyler, City of Omaha Public Works.
I think one of the benefits of what we have here today too is that it does engage two local processors, I think one being First Star and one being Nebraska Land, that were both under consideration in our recent conversations, right?
Yeah, that is correct. The FCC has, in their amendment, they need to take the material to an approved provider by the city. And they've secured those agreements with both First Star and Nebraska Land, who are both fully capable of performing this duty for the city. So it will go to one of those two facilities under this contract.
And I can see why that would be a benefit. It's probably in the city's interest to have more than just one processor capable of performing these duties throughout the city. And showing they can build that capacity and showing they can have that performance, which was some of the line of questioning we had and doubt we had in the last contractual discussion. Still, though, the objective is to rebid a longer-term contract, right? Do you have a time frame for us on that you're thinking?
We haven't set a time frame right now for the rebid process. Right now, we're concentrating on working with FCC to get the new contract in place, so that's what our staff is dedicated to. We will be working on that, like I said, within the year. We just don't have that timeline secured, but once we get that figured out, we'll communicate that to you.
Okay. I received a question about this yesterday too, and that question being, you know, with the start of the new contract not going as we'd all hoped, would this particular provision add a burden to FCC's work up and above what they're trying to handle right now, and could they handle that burden? But the short answer to that question is this is just the processing contract, and they're picking these materials up anyway. It's just a matter of where they're taking them, right?
That is correct. This will allow them to take them to either facility. That's for them to decide. And, you know, they'll work on their route system and find the best way to manage their operations to take them to one of those facilities. So it should be, if anything, beneficial to them.
And so the pickup's not in question. It's just a matter of the processing of the materials. And is there any kind of oversight just to make sure those materials are in fact processed and are in fact recycled? I don't doubt they will, but I just want to make sure folks know that we're thinking about that.
Yeah, and on this end, you know, because of the way this addendum is worded, we don't have some of the things that we would have in a normal contract with a material processor. What I can assure you is that when that material goes to a processing facility, it is in their best interest to get it recycled. That's the way they make money. So they're not going to take that material and take it to a landfill. That costs them money. They're going to recycle every amount of that material that's possible. That's how they stay in business.
Great. And I know it's all of our hope that this does help increase the recycling rate throughout the city, both the carts and this processing contract. So I think that is in everybody's interest, both philosophically and economically, as you note. Mr. Brazil, just a couple questions for you too.
Good afternoon, Dan Brazel, 9172 Lay Road, Houston, Texas.
Apologize for pronouncing your name wrong.
It's all good. It's all good.
Happens to you all the time, right? Just two questions for you as well. And I've had this conversation with Public Works, but I just haven't seen you in the last week. Some concern in my district too about the glass and recycling drop-off sites themselves. In this contract, we still have 5 locations, just like we did before. But one in my area that has now moved due to that property being sold, and frankly, a lot of illegal dumping too, was in the Benson area that then moved to 109th and Emmett, but then since is no longer located there at the request of that property owner. So maybe 2 questions for you along those lines. I know you're working hard to reestablish a site in that area, so status of that. But then secondly, I think we've communicated our interest in an additional site, which would be at least 6, so that there is in fact coverage in the Midtown area, because there really isn't anything in between at this point 110th Street and 17th Street downtown in that part of the city.
Yeah, so on the existing site that we had to move due to a complaint, basically, we should have another property within the next week. We've identified a business that's within 2 blocks of that facility, so it's our full intention to have that back in place. And then in terms of the Midtown area, so I received an email this morning asking, just inquiring about that. We actually have purchased 4 more drop site boxes, the actual green containers that are used on site. They are a 6 to 8 week lead time currently, so there's a little bit delay because it's really a custom built container for the recyclables. But once we have those, we're fully willing and interested in adding another site. So I know we've already been communicating with Public Works and some of you to identify where we could place that in the Midtown area, but that's likely we could have happen in January once we get the additional boxes in.
Great. That would be appreciated, and I think help address some of the concerns I'm receiving. And I think increase our recycling rates too, because it's a very dense population center there that does care about recycling.
Right.
And then lastly, just because you are here and you have the floor, would you like to address the city council about the first couple weeks here? I know it's been kind of a rocky start, and I think things are improving, but we want them to improve quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first off, thank you. Yeah, so we didn't get off to, I'll say, 100% start like we had envisioned and hoped for. There's a few factors that have contributed to that. I think the positive side is, we're seeing every day trending better and better to get to that 100% success rate and minimal call-ins. I saw a chart from Jim Tyler this morning on call-in volume, which is drastically declining. We're seeing that at our location too, because we do receive some phone calls there. Staffing is a key focus for us. I know everyone hears that in this business, but we had staffed ahead going into this, knowing that it's a challenging first month as people get used to the new trucks, the new routes, the residents get used to the new container system. Unfortunately, we lost a few right before the start of the contract. However, we've quickly reacted to that, and we had 4 new drivers start for us this week. We also have 5 more in the pipeline that'll be joining us either next week or the week after, which gets us to fully staffed. And then we've been able to bring in support from both Texas and Florida, 3 drivers each week to help us. So there's a lot of things, I'd say small items such as, is this route covering this area? Just minor tweaks and changes that we're modifying, making sure the drivers are comfortable with their trucks. It's a huge learning curve on the new technology, driving from the right side instead of the left side. I heard, Mr. Stork make a comment about it's a slower collection model than it used to be. Once the helpers are used to the cart tipper and maneuvering that cart, it goes fast. If you think about in the past, there was a ton of manual labor. The helper may have to grab 5 personal containers and literally throw those into the back of the truck, where now it's one cart and the truck does all the lifting, so it's a much better and safe job for the employees, which is key. That's why you're seeing the industry go to this from a labor safety standpoint of the people. So a lot of those things are just repetition and getting used to it. We're on week 3 now, again, seeing drastic improvements. And as we add the extra staffing, we'll put extra routes out there. We've rented 4 trucks to throw additional resources out there to make sure we're helping that. And we'll see a drastic improvement right this week and next week, and then in January, really where we should be in terms of meeting those expectations.
Thank you. I appreciate your attention to those matters, and I know I have other lights on here, so I'll yield the floor and motion to approve number 45.
Thank you, Councilmember Festerson. Councilmember Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Do you want me to say? Or?
Yeah, well,
I can walk.
You can come back.
Okay.
First of all, I'm glad we have this item on here for consideration, because I want to make sure, as I think the rest of the council does as well, to make sure that the citizens know that we're committed to a solid and robust recycling program. And when it became apparent that we weren't going to be able to agree on a contract for a long-term service provider for that function, this is the interim or the stopgap measure that's required to send that message to the city that we will maintain a robust recycling program in the interim, and then work for a long-term commitment from a provider going forward. So I think this is an important step as we move from one service provider to another, and ensure that we have that robust recycling program that we all want. And if I'm if I'm anecdotal to the conversation, my bin's full already. I think today's probably my pickup day, and I'm sure the volume levels for the recycling have already. I see nodding of heads from Public Works and FCC that we're already seeing those increases in volume of recycling. So those are all positive steps. I do want to take a moment to address some of the transition as we're going forward. But before I do that, I want to make sure that people also understand that the current contract, I believe, Mr. Tyler, if I'm incorrect, you can come up. If I'm correct, you don't need to. But the current contract that we have with First Star goes through the end of the year. So the changes that we're considering here for the recyclables to be delivered according to what FCC arranges with the recycling providers actually doesn't start until the first of the year. So where these recycling materials go from here to the end of the year will still be at First Star, And it's after that point in time where you'll see splitting of delivery of those goods, the recyclables to those processors. I too wanted to address the switch over from waste management to FCC. And you know, it's interesting. I had this conversation with Councilmember Gray earlier today. It's been such a long period of time, and we never agreed on what the number of years was, but it's been such a long period of time that we've gone through a whole-scale process change like we're seeing for the delivery or the providing of a service to the citizens of Omaha. I mean, we've been taking our cans out to and bins out to the street for a number of years. Councilmember Gray had to remind me that it wasn't all that long ago that the collectors actually came up to your garage and took the cans out of your garage and took them to the street. So I guess the long and short of that is there's a huge learning curve for both we, the consumers, and the contractor. And there will be some hiccups, and FCC's commitment to addressing those and react to those, as you see, you know, Mr. Brazel's up here from Texas. We've got additional drivers from Florida and Texas, and I hope they're enjoying our weather. And showing their commitment to ensuring that they are going to work through the issues as we transition. It's hopefully a once in a lifetime transition for how we deal with the collection of solid waste and recyclables, but it is a learning curve. We appreciate the patience of the customers, the citizens. We also appreciate the commitment of FCC in working through it and making it right. And there will be some hiccups, but we will work through it. And I think, you know, in short order, we'll be complaining about the cold weather. So I'm supportive of the resolution that we have here before us today on the interim insurement of the collection and processing of the recyclables, and look forward to, and here I'll make my plug, Mr. Tyler, look forward to a rebidding that also might include, as Mr. Thompson referenced, an option where the city of Omaha is not playing the markets on the recyclables, and that it's just a baseline amount and we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harding. Vice President Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yeah, to simplify this as well, you know, here on the council, sometimes we all vote in a majority on something and it's the right vote. And sometimes we disagree and it's the right vote. This didn't pass, but now we have two of the best worlds in front of us. We have two local small businesses that aren't going to be with lack of recyclables because of the amount coming their way, which means they're going to have a workforce that's still going to be thriving and probably both adding people, and not to mention both of these companies are based and live and are out of our community here right in Omaha, which is great. We've said all along we're not going to let recycling die on this watch, and I'll stick with that. Of course, it's tough to take a step back, and Mr. Tyler, you did that. Director Stubbe, you did that. But I think we're where we need to be moving forward on this contract, because I'll admit, like others, my cart is full every week. So it's going to be a challenge. And as far as FCC goes, look, like I told you before, I'm glad you're in this spot, because the way the routes were set up, the way the trucks were going to be implemented with the number of drivers, yeah, we've had some issues, but I'm glad you're here to solve these issues, because I worry where we would be otherwise. And I know we're getting off track a little bit, because it's not what 45 is about, but that's what we're here about now. So we're gonna get it right. As we discussed in Public Works, if we still have a problem come February, then we have a problem, we're gonna have you back. But I don't believe that's gonna be the case. And so back to 45, I wish both the companies luck. I know FCC will be the deciding factor of where they want these recyclables to go. And again, it's a benefit to the community and these companies to both reap the materials they're getting, because these processors know how to make money and they're going to do it. So thank you for the step back we took, Public Works, but I think putting us in the right direction to get this right in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Palermo.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item
I'd now ask for a motion, a second, to reconsider item 44 and to suspend Rule 10A to allow reconsideration for the purposes of changing our vote from approval on 44 as presented to approval of 44A, the amendment of the whole. And reconsider? Item 44, roll call.
Festerson. Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Now may we have a motion for the amendment of the whole on item 44?
Apologies, since I made the motion before, I forgot to add as amended for the amendment of the whole in A.
And Mr. Gray seconded. Roll call, please.
Festerson. Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 46, a resolution to approve a settlement agreement for Rochelle A. Stewart versus City of Omaha in the amount of $50,000.
Public hearing on item 46 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson. Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 47, an ordinance vacating a portion of Indiana Street east of North 28th Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 47 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed.
Item 48, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Central Square Technologies LLC to provide fire alarm-related services for a term of 5 years.
The public hearing on item 48 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed.
Item 49, an ordinance approving the 10 Square Townhomes Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement located at 618-636 North 46th Street in an amount up to $835,500.
The public hearing on item 49 begins at this time. We'll begin with Mr. Seaton from the Planning Department and then proceed to proponents with the people registered by Zoom, Mr. Sands and his clients, the Schlickburns. Mr. Seaton, you're recognized.
Good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sands.
Thank you. Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street on behalf of the developer. They are on the Zoom meeting as well, and we are all happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike and Jerry, do you wish to add anything?
We're just very excited to be redeveloping this portion of the city and looking forward to the project.
And we'd note your address at 503 South 36th Street, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on item 49? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed.
Excuse me. We need time to stand up. Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska, 68132. Essentially, I am against number 49 and number 50.
We're just on 49 right now.
All right, number 49, my first reason is what happened to the city's participation? All of a sudden, it's gone from these paragraphs. Is this a different plan than the ordinary TIF that says the city's participation is? And then in doing a little of the research, updated literature from the legislators in Lincoln and lawinformation.com implies that perhaps some of the TIF and Omaha Land Bank stuff is not necessarily operating the way they thought it should. One of the statements is that the property taxes in the area of the neighborhood won't rise during the redevelopment. But it also ensures that excess property tax directly created by the project itself will be used. That implies that the city doesn't have to participate. The hope is that the property taxes and property values will eventually rise. Therefore, the excess tax revenue, but from who? From the developer or from the people that still live in the area? If you guys declare my street blighted or severely blighted, does that mean my property taxes will remain stagnant for 20, 25 years? And only after that period will the buy taxes rise? That doesn't sound logical. And one of the other testimonies down in Lincoln on the bill 424, I think it was.
We're not here on LB 424, Mr. Storer.
That,
We're on item 49. Please restrain your
But
comments to that item.
okay, but that bill was on tax increment financing.
Thank you. For the record, as a part of how the tax increment financing works is there's a base value of the assessment for the value of the property computed by the Douglas County assessor. The developers and the city do not have any role in what she ultimately decides. And then the incremental increase predicted over the life of the 15 years of the project is paid. And we hope, as the neighborhood improves, the property values increase in the neighborhood as well, which, if successful, brings up and lifts up the whole neighborhood. Public hearing's closed. Yes, Councilmember Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to reiterate that at no time would adjoining property owners ever be responsible for paying back the debt that the developer has taken out. It's on the property owners of that property that the tax increment financing, which we call TIF, it actually pays for. So at no time would a taxpayer that lives adjacent to the property ever be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Item 50, an ordinance approving the 39 Harney Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Agreement located at 3922, 3924, and 3926 Harney Street in an amount up to $678,835.
The public hearing on item 50 begins at this time. We'll begin with proponents with Bridget Hadley from the City Planning Department, and then proceed to individuals who have registered by Zoom, Mr. Sands and his client, Mr. Miller. Ms. Hadley, you're recognized.
Afternoon, Bridget Hadley, here to answer questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Sands and Mr. Miller. Oh, Mr. Sands.
Thank you. Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street, on behalf of the developer. Happy to answer any questions. I believe my client had to depart, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on item 50? Are there any opponents on item 50? Last call. Public hearing is closed.
Item 51, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for condemned buildings or structures on certain lots in the City of Omaha, Group 2020-01.
The public hearing on item 51 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Anna Bespoyasny, City of Omaha Planning Department, 1819 Farnham. I'm here to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 52 through 64, do not require a public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Roll call.
Festerson. Yes. Gray. Yes. Harding. Yes. Melton. Yes. Pauls. Palermo. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3 o'clock.